Well, that is going to do it for the news segment of our program. We thank you for being with us and certainly hope that you enjoy your holiday tomorrow as we celebrate our nation's independence. But you want to stay right there because we do have Sports Overtime, and Zach Stepanek is here with what's coming up. Zach.
Yes, Leon. Former Forest Hill Central basketball standout Kyle Visser makes an appearance in studio. The Detroit Tigers are on fire. We'll recap Olympic trials action from the pool, the final night for swimming before the Rio Games, and you won't want to miss the story of a steeplechase Olympic hopeful and the journey of a swimmer from Canton, Michigan to Rio. Sports Overtime is next. The Olympic trials for swimming are coming to an end. Tonight marked the last night in the pool before Rio, and a Michigan Wolverine raced in the final event. How did Connor Yeager do? Just a week removed from being swept by the Cleveland Indians, the Detroit Tigers had a broom party of their own. Did they get the job done in Tampa Bay against the Rays? Former Forest Hill Central and Wake Forest product Kyle Visser joins me in studio. We'll discuss his days as a Demon Deacon, the basketball camp he is hosting, and much more. Leah O'Connor looks to make a splash at the track and field trials out in Oregon. Find out what event she looks to qualify in and how she has reached the brink of a Rio berth. All that and more coming up on Sports Overtime. Welcome to Sports Overtime. I'm Zach Stepanek. We are 1 week away from the Major League Baseball All-Star break, and don't look now, but the Detroit Tigers, in the midst of an 11-game road trip, have found their stride. Tigers looking for the sweep of the Tampa Bay Rays this afternoon. Mike Pelfrey towing the rubber for Detroit, and this is the only trouble he ran into all game. Bottom five, Kurt Casale sends one down the right field line into the corner. Nick Franklin turns on the Jets, scoots home all the way from first. Rays led 1-0, but that was all Pelfrey surrendered in greater than 6 innings of work. Top 8, game tied at 1. Justin Upton sends a rocket to center past the diving Brandon Geyer. 2 runs cross the plate. That's all the scoring the Tigers would need. But top 9, Ian Kinsler, just for good measure, his 200th career home run. That's 6 straight wins for the Tigers. They sweep the Rays 5-1. And Coach, how about that start from Pelfrey?
One of his best 2 outings of the year. He got quick outs. The pitch count was down. I think he spent some time sitting in between the innings, and I think he just got tired at the end. He got a little out of sync, but he did more than his part.
National League, the New York Mets looking for a sweep of their own at the expense of the Chicago Cubs. Top 1, Anthony Rizzo smacks a liner to right. Jason Hayward comes around to score on the play. Cubs up 1-0. It was all downhill from there, though. Curtis Granderson in the bottom of the first unleashes a bomb to center, tying things at 1. Then in the second, Wilmer Flores drives a high fly deep to center field, and that's gone. Flores went 6 for 6 in the game with 2 homers and 4 RBI. That blast started a 7-run second inning for the Mets. To the 7th, Kelly Johnson, a 2-run jack. That made it 13-1 New York. 5 home runs, 22 hits for the Mets. They hand the Cubs a 4th straight loss, 14-3 in the Big Apple. Midwest League, the series finale between the West Michigan Whitecaps and Dayton Dragons was postponed this afternoon due to inclement weather. The Whitecaps return home tomorrow for the first of 8 straight at Fifth Third Ballpark. NASCAR Sprint Cup action from last night, taking time before the race to honor members of the armed forces on this patriotic weekend. It was the Coke 0400 at Daytona. Pole sitter Greg Biffle leading the charge as the green flag waves, but it was lap 90 where the fun began. Only a matter of time before the big one. Jamie McMurray gets loose, collecting 15 cars in the process. That included top contenders like Chase Elliott, Jimmy Johnson, and Kyle Larson. When you attempt 3-wide racing, that more than likely will be the result. Then with 16 laps to go, Brad Keselowski executes the crossover move to perfection, taking the lead away from Kyle Busch. He didn't look back, Keselowski taking the checkered flag, his first ever win at Daytona. Kyle Busch finished second, Trevor Bayne was third. Switching gears to the hardwood, I am now joined by former Forest Hill Central standout and Wake Forest alum Kyle Visser. Kyle, welcome back to West Michigan.
I appreciate it. It's good to be back.
Yeah, well, thank you for joining us tonight. You graduated Forest Hill Central 03. Wake Forest in '07. And you were telling me earlier you got to play with Chris Paul while you were at Wake Forest. Take me through that.
I did. Didn't only play with him, I lived with him my freshman year. We came in together, so yeah. I've been fortunate enough to be around some of the greats in the game of basketball. And we knew he was going to be special when he decided to leave after a couple years, but that was an understatement. He's made a huge impact on the NBA. Yeah.
And you also said you played with Ish Smith.
I did.
Fun fact, he might not be the greatest basketball player in the world, but he has the greatest name in the NBA.
Ish the Dish.
Yes, just signed a 3-year contract with the Pistons, so you got to feel pretty good for an old teammate to be.
Absolutely. I just read it, I think it was yesterday, saw him sign an $18 million deal, and yeah, so he was my little freshman point guard my senior year, and a big reason I was able to get a lot of NBA tryouts and ultimately play 8 years professionally. I mean, the guy was phenomenal at getting in the lane and just making us all a lot better, kind of like Chris Paul.
Now, you played yourself professionally, 8 years overseas, 7 years in Germany, 1 year in Serbia. Take us through what that experience was like for you.
I could write 10 books on it, but I mean, Serbia alone, I could write, a novel. But, just a great experience overall. I was fortunate enough to be with my wife, formerly Julia Brasseth, now Visser. And that was great. We had a child over there. Got to experience a culture we probably would have never really fully immersed ourselves in, and really just thoroughly enjoyed my time there, and enjoyed the people, especially of Germany and people of Braunschweig where I played.
Well, now you're back in Grand Rapids. West Michigan always brings people back.
Yeah.
And you're doing real estate, and you also have a post camp at Grand Rapids Community College.
I am, yeah. So touching on the real estate, got licensed 4 years ago when I actually had a shoulder injury here. I was supposed to go to Italy a couple weeks later. Ended up having to forego that contract and stuck around for 6 months while I rehabbed and got licensed and learned real estate, and found it to be a natural fit for me. So I knew that was probably going to be the next step when I left basketball. So yeah, then like you said, in my free time, just really enjoy pouring back into our local youth. I think we live in such an amazing community that I love to try to give back as much as I can. So yeah, doing my 5th annual, which is kind of crazy to think, 5 of them now. And so yeah, that'll be next week, July 11 to 13, Monday through Wednesday.
Very cool. And for people who are interested in that, where can they find some more information?
Yeah, so KyleVisser.com. Pretty easy. It's a real estate / basketball website, so they can find information under the basketball tab. There's still spots available for signups. Registration can happen right there or at the door. And yeah, it's available for any boy and girl, pretty much ages 10 and up, that kind of want to work on their game, especially if their game happens to kind of be around the basket, because that's what I focus on primarily at my camps.
So can you show any of the young players a good Chris Paul crossover move? Did you ever have to deal with that in practice?
Not so much. I can catch it and finish it and dunk on somebody, but I don't know about not too many crossover moves taught at my camps. I leave that for the Drew Neitzel camp.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Kyle, we really appreciate you stopping by the show tonight.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and I hope a lot of you can come out to the camp this year.
Yeah, best of luck with the camp and with the real estate.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Coming up, we'll jump in the pool for Olympic trials in swimming. The final 2 events and last 4 roster spots up for grabs tonight. Speaking of swimming, we have the story of a gold medalist from Canton, Michigan, how her path back to the Olympics was almost derailed. And a Spartan warrior looking to continue her path to Rio begins Olympic trials competition tomorrow. Her story next. You're watching Sports Overtime. Leah O'Connor was one of the most decorated athletes Michigan State has ever seen. She'll be the first to tell you how she got to this point. 2 solid performances away from competing in Rio is because of reasons well beyond the headlines and PRs. It starts with the day-to-day training and the people she has surrounded herself with. In order to find success in the steeplechase, one must relinquish all fear. A 3,000-meter race featuring barriers and water jumps. The steeplechase is anything but a comfortable competition.
They've got to be pretty fearless. there's an element of that kind of athletic fearlessness that really goes a long ways in helping define whether they're good steeplers or not. Most people wouldn't stick their neck out and run over a barrier and push off and try to clear 12 feet of, essentially 12 feet of water.
Leah O'Connor has found the secret formula. Now sponsored by Adidas, the Michigan State grad won the Big Ten title in the steeplechase each of her 4 years as a Spartan. She owns the MSU record for the event and set a NCAA championship mark in the mile during the indoor track and field season her senior year. But it hasn't always been smooth sailing for O'Connor.
I have grown the most from my failures as an athlete, and so it's been a really tough and rewarding road. I wouldn't be able to handle any of this without a team of people, obviously.
Following her collegiate career, O'Connor decided to pursue running at the professional level, staying in East Lansing to train. A big reason? Her coach, Walt Drenth.
I trust him so much, and if he says I can do something, I will blindly be like, yeah, I can do that, and so I think all throughout college, he would tell me in a workout, you can do this, and even if I didn't believe it, I would try.
The most logical thing to do was just stick around to keep the continuity of training and sort of, that familiarity. We thought it was really important to kind of keep that stuff cohesive. She has a good infrastructure here with sports medicine people and doctors, and there's a variety of people here that are a support for her.
After setting a PR of 9:18 at the Nike Prefontaine in May, knocking over 13 seconds off her previous best, O'Connor solidified her name in Olympics conversation. Her next step? The Olympic trials, looking to secure a spot on Team USA.
This spring, I was running. It was a really hard day. I was really tired. And all of a sudden it kind of clicked. I'm like, wait, I'm training for the Olympic trials, like potentially the Olympics right now. And I kind of got goosebumps because I was like, wait, this is happening.
She's been in a really competitive environment. Again, she was a national champion in the steeple 2 years ago, a national champion in the indoor mile. She's been in those kind of competitive environments. So I don't think that the Olympic trials will be much of a difference for her.
I'm gonna just keep giving it my best and toe the line the same way at the trials. Just go for it and see what happens.
O'Connor will compete in the 3,000-meter steeplechase qualifier tomorrow at the Track and Field Olympic Trials in Eugene, Oregon. If all goes as she expects, O'Connor will also be competing in the finals for the event on Thursday. Stick with us. A recap from the final night at the Olympic trials in swimming is next. Don't go anywhere. It's hard to believe, but the Olympic trials in swimming have come to an end. I know, they just started. To the pool. We'll begin with the women's 50-meter freestyle final. Have to execute well in this race off the block. And with 2 spots to Rio on the line, they had to get off to a fast start. Only 1 lap. Abby Weitzel would take home the top spot. She was followed by Simone Manuel. Madison Kennedy, in her 3rd Olympic trials, looking for her first Olympic roster spot, finished 3rd, 15/100ths of a second short. Next up, the men's 1,500-meter freestyle final. University of Michigan product Connor Yeager, the U.S. record holder in the event, looking to qualify for a second race as he won the 400 free last week. And it was a 2-man race pretty much the whole way. Yeager trying to hold off Jordan Wilimovsky. Yeager used a strong kick off the next to last wall here and began to get some separation. By the end, no one was within a half lap of he and Wilimovsky. They go 1-2. Yeager, a chance for gold twice in Rio. Allison Schmidt is heading to Rio. She will be a member of the 4x200 freestyle relay team. At the 2012 London Games, Schmidt won 3 golds, a silver, and a bronze. And when she came home to Canton, Michigan, she had scores of people patting her on the back, telling her how lucky she was and how they wished they were her. All we saw were pictures of her with medals and smiles. None of us could have guessed what she was really going through.
They say a picture tells 1,000 words, but after her medal haul in London, none of the words used to describe Allison Schmidt told her real story.
I was told many times that how lucky I was and how happy I should be. I knew deep down that I should be happy.
What a swim by Schmidt.
The permanent smile etched on her face was a far cry from reality.
I had gone through thoughts of not wanting to live.
Depression had taken hold, and its grasp was suffocating.
I kind of isolated and dug myself into a hole and just kept isolating, which I know for myself and probably many other people out there, that's not a good sign.
There were two events in Allison's life that finally drew her out of her isolation and prompted her to reach out for help. The first came in January of 2014 at a swim meet in Austin, Texas, during an interaction with her friend and training partner, Michael Phelps.
He came up to me after my 400 free, which he could tell that I kind of just swam it to swim it. Didn't really swim with passion. And as a swimmer, I love meets. I love competing. I wouldn't be in a sport if it wasn't for the competing. And you could tell that I wasn't competing. He could tell that I wasn't myself. And he said to me, I can tell you're not yourself. I know there's something going on. Whenever you're ready, I can help you, or I know people that can help you.
Allison broke down right there on the deck of the pool and took Phelps up on his offer. 4 months later, her cousin April lost her battle with depression.
So that made me realize that this has to be stopped, because she didn't know what I was going through. I didn't know what she was going through. I mean, she probably felt alone, so alone, and then seeing the thousands of people that were at her funeral to celebrate her life. It's hard to realize that. It's hard to see that when we're in our bubble, but to just kind of take a deep breath and look back and realize that we're all human and we're all there for each other.
As an athlete, Allison says she was taught from a young age to rely on herself to push through races. After her cousin's suicide, she reached out to her aunt and shared her story.
My aunt said to me, April could be the first person, you're the first person April saved. And that meant a lot to me.
Now Allison's mission, more important than winning races and medals, is helping others. She travels the country giving speeches and speaks openly about her struggles. If she can stop even one person from making the same decision April made, it's as big a win as any she's ever had in the pool.
To know that together, even though she's not on Earth anymore, that we can save many other lives out there. And I'm taking that in day by day and knowing that she's up there watching down on us and enjoying the little bit of life we have, because we're not really here for that long.
Great story from Sports Director Jack Doles. Allison says the end of the games is a very difficult time for an Olympic athlete. Once you make the team, everything is there for you. Your workouts and meals are planned out. Your rehabilitation sessions are scheduled for you. Travel plans taken care of. Then all of a sudden, you're on your own. The safety net gone, and you have to figure out what's next. Her mission to help others dealing with depression has given her a greater purpose than swimming, so she should be better prepared to deal with post-Olympics after Rio. On the other side of the break, we'll explore some free agency signings, specifically looking at moves from the Red Wings and Pistons. The free agency moratorium for the National Basketball Association and National Hockey League has had owners dishing out cash like Kanye West in a music video. In the NHL, the Detroit Red Wings' big free agent prize, Frans Nielsen, the 32-year-old center, signed a 6-year, $31.5 million deal on Friday. He fills the Wings' need at forward. Nielsen had spent his entire career with the New York Islanders. A couple other signings for the Red Wings include Thomas Vanek and Steve Ott. The Wings also re-signed Darren Helm and Alexei Marchenko. In the NBA, the Detroit Pistons and big man Andre Drummond agreed to a max contract extension. The 5-year deal, worth approximately $130 million, makes Drummond the highest-paid player in Pistons history. Other free agents joining the Pistons, point guard Ish Smith, as you heard Kyle Visser talk about earlier, has to be the greatest name in the league, and versatile forward John Lure. Both should add depth to the bench. Stage 2 of the Tour de France today. 198 riders started off on the 114-mile trek, a ride that favored the more aggressive cyclists. And for the second straight day, race favorite Alberto Contador, riddled with complications. He fell again on the same shoulder he injured on Saturday. That was with 37 miles remaining in today's race. Nonetheless, it was a fantastic sprint to the uphill finish. French sensation Julian Alaphilippe breaking away from the peloton for the lead, but Peter Sagan, thinking he was racing for second, muscles past Alaphilippe right at the line. For Sagan, it was the 5th stage victory at the Tour de France since his debut in 2012, but incredibly, his first yellow jersey of his career. To the links, final round of the World Golf Championships, Bridgestone Invitational. World number 1 Jason Day entered tied for the lead. Here he is on the second hole, just off the green, chipping for eagle, clips it perfectly and finds the bottom of the cup. That put him at 7 under, good for the solo lead. Then to the 5th, Dustin Johnson, 26-foot putt for birdie. He rolls it in. That put him at 3 under, and he would charge up the leaderboard all afternoon. Coming off a birdie on 13, Johnson here converting his second straight birdie. That put him at 6 under. So on 17, Johnson, a 16-foot putt. Why not? That goes in to move him to 7 under. Day bogeyed and double bogeyed his 15th and 16th holes respectively, allowing Johnson to snag the title in his first start after his U.S. Open victory. We are down to the final seconds of Sports Overtime. On behalf of the entire production crew, I'm Zach Sapanik. Thanks so much for staying up late with us. We'll see you next week.
4th fastest time in the world this year for Connor Yeager. Personal best for Wilimowski.
He ends a baseball.